Hey guys, Chris at the Ultimate Recycler. On my workbench here is a mirror. It's quite a modern mirror. A lady came into the shop wanting to buy one because she says hers fell off the wall and it broke. And I made a quip about 7 years bad luck, and she said, no, actually the glass didn't break, the mirror didn't break, but the frame did. If we have a look around here, it landed on this corner and it's broken it apart. Now this is a modern one, and it's probably not even real timber. I suspect that it's a resin frame. It's got staples in there to hold it together, and these mouldings are just plastic. So, as typical with a lot of modern stuff, it's made to look ornate, it's made to look almost antique, and it's actually pretty crappy when you really get into how they make it. Amazingly, this section here, they're just held in by nails, and I don't know if you can see that little hole there where the nail goes, and at the end of here, right on my thumbnail, is the nail. So it's pulled out without actually breaking anything. So we should be able to fix that. What I'm going to do is just try and pull these staples out. We'll clean up the corner so that it's nice and flush and the joins will meet properly, and then we'll glue it and clamp it, and job's done. We'll have a nice quick repair. So even though it's modern and probably not worth a great deal, it's worth going to the trouble of repairing this. I know many people that would just basically throw it out. They might keep the mirror itself, but they'd probably just break the frame up and throw it out. But I reckon we can fix it, and we'll give it another life. So the first thing we need to do is get this nail out of here, because we don't want to damage the moulding. We want to keep this job as simple as we can, and if I break the moulding, it means a bit more gluing required. So that nail's coming out fine. We should be able to reuse that. Now, we're going to have to clean up this corner. I might roll the frame over and we'll have a look at it from the back. So it's on a towel here so we don't scratch the frame, and it looks like the backing card is pretty well almost detached. I think I'll pull that right off and just make sure everything else is solid. Yeah, all the staples have actually already pulled out of there. So we'll take that off, we'll get a better look. We have a good look at all the other corners to see if they need clamping up. They're still quite solid, even though there's a bit of a gap there. But this one, you can see the mirror itself is pulled away from the frame because that end's come out. And the piece of card that was along here is separate. So we'll take the back right off and have a good look. Next step will be to clean up all these staples. I think I'll just actually glue the card around the sides just a little bit, just to hold it, and then I'll put some picture framing tape around it. We will probably need to get some nails to hold the mirror back in. These staples are pretty flimsy, and we'll clean all those up too. So if it's worth doing the job, I think it's worth doing it properly. Once we get the mirror out, we can just check all the other corners to make sure they're stable. It looks like we have a dead cricket, been a part of the mirror for a while. So that staple actually goes across the join there. There's none on this side though. But I think it might be worth, because the mirror's got a bit of weight to it, and they're only really relying on these staples to hold it all together, I think we'll just maybe put some little metal brackets over, just to make sure it's secure, and it'll be a nice solid mirror once we're finished. The staples are coming out okay. I've got a fairly fine screwdriver here which is quite sharp on the end, and if I can get the point under it and lever it up a bit, then we'll just pull that out with some side cutters. Side cutters or nail pincers, either way, you can roll the staple out pretty easily and it doesn't leave too much of a mark. So I've got all the staples out now from around the frame, and it's not too bad a condition. It has marked them a little bit where they come out, but that'll be covered by the tape anyway. The corners are a little loose, but they're still fairly firm. I can't really get that one to flex. I think if we probably just squeeze a little bit of glue into them. See, I'm trying to wobble that, and that one's pretty rigid as well. It's not worth knocking it apart. It's just making too much work for us. I found some nice little steel brackets that we should be able to screw on afterwards, and that'll really make it all nice and rigid and firm and solid. So I'll squeeze a little bit of glue in there. The glue will set clear anyway, so it won't really matter. We won't put enough in that it's going to come through the front. And then once we get the mirror back in and the back paper on, the back card, then we'll just screw these on the corners and it should fix it all. So all these three corners that are still attached, we're going to leave alone. And this one we have to fix. I'll pull this staple out here. Now I thought it was some sort of resin. It may be, I'm not actually sure. It could be like a craft wood, like a commercially sort of manufactured timber, but I think it looks like a resin from what I'm looking at there. Anyway, I'll pull that staple out there. I'll run a file across and clean that end up so it's nice and flat. And the other side, well, there's two staples that have got to come out, and we'll have to clean this corner up. We're not really going to be able to help this corner much. It'll be a bit bruised, but that won't really matter. It'll be not visible from the front. This other staple that comes through, it probably pushes through from this side. I'm going to just cut that off and file it back flat. And then we should be able to glue that together and clamp it. Now, hopefully they pull out okay. I think the material's fairly soft. We don't want to damage the outside. That's taking a bit to get out, but it is moving. They're very long staples too. Extremely long. Look at that. That's almost a full length of wire. Alright, so that should work alright. We'll clean that up. We'll get these other ones out from this side. Okay, and we're going to have to cut that one off. I've just got a broken hacksaw blade here. It should be enough to cut through it neatly. Okay, that's cut through them enough just to bend them and break them. So it's pretty good. It's flush against the wood. I'll get a file in there now and we'll clean it up so it's nice and flat. So I've got the corner fairly neat. It's a bit twisted, but the clamp will straighten that up. I can't do much about the damage on the outside here, but we might fill that up. And I think I've got some gold paint here that we can touch it up a little bit. Sometimes you're better off leaving them because touch-ups can look more ugly than damage. On the front there's only a little bit of a chip to the top there, and the corner you won't really see once it's up on the wall. I managed to take the decoration piece off. It's only a light plastic piece, but I got it off without breaking it. The nails pulled out fine, so they'll be able to go back in the same holes. And I needed to get that off so that I can clamp it. Now I'm going to use one of these mitre clamp. If you haven't got a picture framing clamp like this, you could equally just use a long sash clamp along that way and then one down the length and just gently tighten them so that the corner stays true, and that will certainly work. At a pinch you could also actually just use string or wire and tie to each end of the frame and twitch it up, and that will pull it in, and then you'd have to do one that way to pull it in as well. That's a bit more agricultural, but you know, if you don't have the tools you certainly can do it that way. I've got a mitre clamp here, so I may as well use it. Okay, I've just glued that up and clamped it firm. I made sure I twisted the frame a little bit so that it meets neatly, and that's closed it up quite well. I've used a Sally's Aqua here, this is actually an exterior wood glue, which is quite a strong one, so we should get a good join there because it meets nicely. So we'll leave that set overnight. The other corners, as I've mentioned, are going to be fine, but we will turn it over tomorrow and squeeze a bit of glue in to the corners, and then we can reassemble. Now I've also propped the other corners up. You'll notice with various things. I've got the handle of a screwdriver under this end, and I think there's a bolt under that end, just to keep the whole frame nice and square. We don't want to have one corner glued and then it develops a twist in the whole frame. So that's all nice and square. I'm happy with that. We'll get back to it tomorrow. Time to take the clamp off. It's been 24 hours, so the glue should be nice and strong. And we're going to turn the whole frame over. Actually, what I'll do first is reattach this plastic decoration. And once we get that nailed back on, we'll turn the whole frame over. We'll squeeze a little glue into the other corners and we'll put those angle brackets on. We'll align this with the same holes that came out of, and we'll just tap these nails home. I don't think it needs any glue. The nail should hold it fine. And we'll just use a punch to hammer the nails home so that we don't squash or break the decoration. That should be fine. Alright, let's turn the frame over. Now with all the corners on the back, I'm just going to use a little squeeze bottle and get some glue into these gaps. It will just help make the whole frame more secure. So I'll just squeeze a bit in there, and it should gravitate down into the join, certainly where the gap's wide, and it'll just help seal it and stop any flex. And then what we're going to do is we'll put the mirror back in, we'll put the paper all over the back, we'll tape it over on the back of the frame, and then we'll put our corner brackets on as a last finish. Let's give the mirror a bit of a clean. I usually use whatever cleaner I've acquired out of a house lot, and then I'll do metho and newspaper just to give it a polish, and I find that works pretty well. And a little bit of methylated spirits and a scrunched up piece of newspaper. I think it's probably one of the best glass cleaners you can get. So now I've got the mirror back in, we'll put these cardboard spaces back around, and that brings the mirror almost up to the edge of the frame. Now I'm not going to use staples as was originally used in this. I'm going to secure the mirror with some fine nails. And to install these nails so that we don't stress the frame, I've got some adjustable pliers or channel locks. And what we're going to do is use a scrap bit of timber on the outside of the frame so we don't mark it. And we're going to use these pliers basically as a press. So there's no hammering, there won't be any stress on the frame. We get the point just below the edge of the frame and we'll just press it in. And you can generate quite a lot of force with these pliers. The nail stays nice and flat, it's pushed into the frame a fair way. It's actually raised that a little bit, so I'll make sure I get them deep enough that it doesn't split. And we'll do that all the way around, and that will secure the mirror. That's got all the nails in, they're nice and flat, and the mirror is securely attached and can't possibly fall out. All we need to do now is to put the backing card over it. Now I mentioned earlier that I may glue it. I don't think there's any need, and in the interests of access down the track we won't glue. We'll just run some masking tape around the edge, and we'll put the string back on and then add the reinforcing corners. And now the final touches, just to install these corner brackets. It's a bit of overkill, it's not really necessary. As you see it there, the repair is probably as strong as the mirror was when it was new. But because it's a mirror, they do have a bit of weight, and these frames are only stapled together on the corners. If we screw these down, it will make it very strong and it'll last a long time. So all I've got to do here is I've got some short wood screws that will short enough that they won't go through the front of the frame, and I will just drill a very small pilot hole just so that the screw doesn't start to split, because the frame material isn't very good quality. So we'll put these in, then the job's done. All done, job's finished. I'm sure the lady will be happy with this repair, and it's stronger than the day it was made. Let's turn it over. In fact, let's turn it over the other way, because I'm sure you don't necessarily want to see my full face in this. So there you go, ready to hang. Looks great. Little bit of a bruise on this corner. We might just fill that gap with some glue And if I had any gold, I could just touch that up and you'd probably never know. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Nothing particularly skillful, just really have a go. These mirrors, I don't know what this would retail at. You would probably pay $100 at least at a retail store for a mirror like this. I know I would sell it for probably 30 or 40 secondhand in my shop. So the repair didn't take that long. Certainly much better than throwing it out. We should not waste things like this when they're easily repairable and give it a new life. So the final question, what is it? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who was the fairest? Perhaps we better not answer that. Coco, you'd be the fairest for sure. See you all. Catch you next time.